So how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Okay. So I have prepared some questions here, and I want to ask about yourself and bug bounty in general. So first
Okay.
of all, I know you, but for people who don't know you, who you are.
Hi, my name is Sturk, or that's my hacker handle, and I'm a cybersecurity advisor, content creator, and bug hunter.
Yeah. So great to be with you here. It's my pleasure. So let me ask you our questions. How have you been hacking, or how did you start hacking? And tell me about your background about this field.
Okay, cool. So I would say I kind of been semi-hacking things all my life, although I didn't know that it was hacking. You know, in the beginning, you're probably playing around with a computer and you're curious about how it works and you're tweaking stuff and all that. But I primarily started doing offensive hacking, or the kind of pen testing work, in somewhere around 2014. Before that, I've been working almost somewhere around 20 to 25 years at that stage in the IT industry. I didn't do pen testing at that time. I was on the defensive blue team side, and I worked as a systems architect for years, specialized in hybrid solutions and cloud enterprises, and primarily Windows Active Directory. I've done a lot of hours in Active Directory.
Great. Okay, so our meeting is more about bug bounty. Do you perform bug bounty full time? When did you start, and how long do you work in this security industry?
Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't do bounties full time. I couldn't do it. I tried for a while, but my body just couldn't take it. Yeah. I started sleeping less and less because my brain was totally just overpowered all the time trying to solve issues, and so it wasn't good for me. So now I'm just doing it, a couple of days every month or so. That's all I do it, but I schedule full days for it. So I'll do I get up early in the morning and I do a full day of bounties, and then at the evening, somewhere around 6 or 7 o'clock, I stop, and then that's done for the day. And then I like to do those in batches. So maybe let's say I do a Thursday and a Friday. Those work good for me, but doing an hour here and there, that just doesn't work. And I've been doing this primarily since I realized what bounties was back in 2018. I hadn't done any bug bounties before that, but that is primarily when I started. I got introduced to bug bounties somewhere around early 2017, and definitely got introduced to it when I went to a live hacking event, visited a live hacking event in Vegas during DEF CON. So I've been doing this probably actively since 2014, but bounties all in since 2018.
Great. So what are bug bounties?
Bug bounty is where hackers or IT people or people that are curious, just like you and I, get to look for security vulnerabilities or misconfigurations in companies' websites that allow for external researchers or just curious people to look at their website and see if they find vulnerabilities. And usually bug bounties is something that you will get some kind of reward for the work that you do. It could be either you could get like a Hall of Fame representation on the website, you can get some swag, which would be stuff like that, like clothing and stuff, or it could be money, straight up cash.
Right. Does bug bounty program affect organization risk management of big companies like Twitter or Yahoo? I mean, is there any disadvantage to the reputation of big companies when someone shares their weaknesses?
I don't think so. I think that's a really good posture to show transparency that we had this issue before, but it's been fixed now. So I primarily personally think it's a good way for companies to show that they are mature as a company, to say that, okay, we had some issues, but we have a full team working on solving that. So I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I think it's something that companies should do.
Security without shame.
Yeah, and it's also cool to do that because it shows you that you care about your customers.
Yeah. Do you prefer which platform, HackerOne or Bugcrowd, and why?
No, I love both. I love both, and I like integrity too, but I primarily hack most of my time on HackerOne.
Yeah. Okay, another good question. What does a good report look like? For example, when you send a report, what do you need first? Your name and the type of bug and what I mean.
I would say a good report is well crafted, which means that it's very, very easy for the triager or the to follow your instructions and step by step be able to reproduce the bug. Because you only want to do this once. The better you are at telling the story, explaining the real world impact here, what you found and how it's reproducible step by step, so the triager don't need to ask you, could you please explain more about this, or I'm unable to reproduce this, could you please tell me why? And the triager is somebody that receives the reports and supposed to audit it, like see if it's valid and see if they're able to reproduce it. And it's your job as a reporter to write as good as a possible report, so it's easy for them to do their job, because the longer time it takes for them to reproduce it, the longer time it's going to get for you to get your payout.
Right. Why Microsoft, Facebook, Google, and some other big companies have their own platform for bug bounties?
I have no idea. But if you have companies, let's say like Facebook, you're able to report bugs both through, as far as I know, both through HackerOne and BugCrowd. They just have their own security team, and maybe they are so big that they can deal with it on their own. The whole reason why we have bug bounty platforms is for companies that don't have that internal security team with triagers to test and do all the reports and have a good payment channel to really just adapt to using bug bounties programs in a very, very easy onboarding. They can even allow these companies to do all the testing and just the pre-triaging for them. It's a service and it costs money for companies. So if you have that internally, hey, why don't run it by yourself?
Right. Why the organization invite hackers to break into their software?
They probably wanted to find security holes before they do it themselves. I mean, that's the whole idea. It just shows that you're mature enough, that your company are ready to take a punch, because it's going to be problematic if somebody breaks into your system. If you lose customer data, that's no good, man. That's no good.
Right. To what extent is the certificate necessary to work in a company for security and bug bounty fields, or just skills are required?
You don't need a certificate to partake in bug bounties. You really don't. There's no H&R program that's going to say, okay, we need to see if you got your OSCP. Nobody's going to do that for you. It's open for anyone. And I think that's the coolest thing with bug bounties. It's a way for anyone that has a spare time or just are curious to hack on some of the most hardened targets that are on the market. Some of the most secure system on the internet, you're allowed to hack at those without the risk of having any legal issues with that. You're not going to get thrown into jail or get an email or a message saying that you broke the law by just poking at their stuff, because they want you to look at it. So I would definitely say that you don't need a certificate, but you should probably see bounties as a way as a hobby or a way to move on in your career. Right. Because these aren't easy targets. They are really, really, really hard. So if you're ready to do bounties, it's almost like if you're, let's say that you wanted to go out and running, right? And in the beginning, you're getting a pair of runner's shoes. That's kind of something you need. So you need some basic computer skills. But after a while, the more you run, the fitter you will be and the easier it would be. And when you put on some weight vest, like a really heavy weight vest, maybe some weight on your ankles, because you really want to work hard, that's where bounties is. You hack on some really hard targets, but it's a hard work, but it's also high reward, which means that the only investment you need to make is your time. And if you want to do that and you invest time, you might just get some money out of it. Right. But you don't need a certificate to do that.
Okay. As a bug bounty hunter and professional hacker, do you prefer which computer system more for this work and why?
I'm an Apple fanboy, so I use a MacBook Pro. That's my preferred weapon of choice. But I also, most of the hacking I do is primarily, if I'm happening through VPSs, and those are Ubuntu boxes in DigitalOcean. So that's usually where most of my hacking happens, to be honest.
Tell me the names of 5 best programming language used in hacking.
I'm not a programmer, so it would be terrible for me to give you the best ones. But I would say Bash and Python Bash, Python, and Go for building or automation and doing like the normal mundane tasks, like doing scanning and inventory and recon and that kind of stuff. But then if you have the possibility to learn JavaScript, it's going to be such a good thing for you, because it's a lot of vulnerabilities in that. So I would suggest you look into JavaScript or maybe .NET or some other programming language. It really, really helpful.
Okay, what tools or platforms should I use for this purpose? I mean, like Burp Suite and what else?
It all depends. I mean, Burp Suite is the by de facto standard tool of the industry. Just like most people that do design probably use Adobe Photoshop for designing things. Burp Suite is the tool that security researchers and security professionals and hackers and bounty people use, because it's a very easy web proxy. There are alternatives though. If you can have a paid version, or you can have like a community version, or you can even try the OWASP Zap, which is also a proxy. There's other options out there, but most people use Burp. Other than that, I think everybody should have at least like a subscription on Shodan to look up targets. You should be comfortable with using Masscan and Nmap and let's say all the tools that are available from the project discovery people like Sublister or AMAS. You should look into using probably HTTPX to look up things, FFUF for fuzzing, or peroxide if you want to use a really fast one in Rust. These are kind of the things that you need to understand how all these works and be fluid in those to be able to build your automation and to be able to at least, dig into stuff.
Yeah.
But to do any kind of web hacking, you don't really need to do that. You just need a proxy and a lot of persistence and curiosity and just poking at websites and see what happens between the browser and the server.
Yeah. Can you recommend us some good bug bounty books? And is theoretical good way to learn bug bounty or practical way is better?
I would say practical, or combine both. And you could read on it, but it's like, let's say for instance, you spent 5 years on watching American football. You're watching every game that ever been played. You read all the rule books. You look up all the players, but you have never ever touched a ball. You will be a very good person that theoretically knows how it works. But if you don't have the practice and the possibility, you can't play the game. Right. So you kind of need to have both. You need the theory, but you also need the practice. So if you combine, let's say that you get Pete Jaworski's book, which is, I think it's called Web Hacking 101, or I think Garrett's book, the Web Application Hacker's Handbook, version 2. And combine those with using services like Pentester Lab, or you use there's educational platform over at Hacker 101, and you have the possibility to play around with Burp Suite creators, Portswigger's Web Academy. You will get a lot of headway on how to do pen testing. Then you got Hack the Box, you got Try Hack Me. There's so many platforms for you to poke around with and do CTFs and get practical at hacking, because it's all about the mindset.
Right.
You can be as good as you can on the theory, but if you're not curious and thinking, well, what happens if I poke at this, you won't hack shit. So it's a mindset, definitely.
Can you protect yourself from being hacked? I mean, 100%, or it's impossible?
I would say it's impossible. Nothing is unhackable. Because it's the second you say something is unhackable, somebody's gonna put a lot of time and effort into that, because everything turns out to be hackable. The only measurement we need to think about here is time invested and how much funding you have. And if you have a state-sponsored actor that has unlimited on time and unlimited of funding, they will hack it. That's how it works.
You know, we hear hundreds of questions every day. What do you say about how to become a good hacker or bug bounty hunter for those who are beginner?
I would say it's not for everyone. It sounds ridiculous, but it's not for everyone. Not everyone can do this because it requires persistence, it requires dedication, it requires interest, because you need to be constantly interested in new stuff. And it also takes that creativity that makes you think outside the box, getting into the mind of the developer and just doing certain things that will break the system. It's possible to train that, but you know if you have that, because you will always search for that. You're curious about things. You always want to learn new stuff. That's kind of the hacker's mindset. And you know if you have it. And you can try, give it a go, but it's not for everyone. But a lot of people can succeed, but there's very, very few that get really, really, really good at it, and it takes a lot of time.
Yeah. What will you do if you found a site error or bug and told the company you had this error and didn't take it seriously? What will you do?
I wouldn't care. I reported it, my work is done. I don't care, it's not personal for me. If I find a bug and they said, we don't care about it, I'm like, okay, screw it, I'll do the next one. Because there's so many bugs out there. There's so many programs. There's so much security issues that it's an abundance. There's more bugs than there are people looking for them. So every time, every day, companies are just pushing out new code. They're employing more people, more developers, tighter budgets. Boom, everybody's just testing all the time. So if I find a bug and they say, meh, we don't care, I say, meh, I don't care either, move on.
Yeah. What's your methodology to find a bug? What are the most common successful probing techniques you try when you're probing an application? I know this is a private question, but can you tell me like simple tips?
Sure, absolutely. There are some certain things that you need to think about that when it comes to bug hunting or any kind of security testing, you need some kind of methodology, some kind of workflow that works for you. Let's say that you test for all the bugs inside OWASP top 10. Everybody does that. That's normal. You should do that too. At least have a little bit of methodology to think through. Have I looked for these XXSs? Have I checked the SQLize? Have I done the XXEs? What kind of framework is it? Are there courses available? What are the file uploads on this space? Could I upload files here? Is there a way for me to get a more privileged pay account access to this site? Because if it's a paywall in between, most bounty hunters won't pay that money to get in. They're like, nah, I'm not paying for that. So there's probably a less tested area behind the paywall. So, but just make sure that you cancel that before you get out, because it's going to get really expensive if you forget about that you're having a really heavy subscription. So always look for, let's say, file uploads. IDORs is a very, very good thing to start with if you're a beginner. Let's say that you and I have the same account. We have two different accounts on a website. I'm an administrator. You're a normal user of the website. I'm supposed to be able to add new users to the website. You aren't. But if I create a user and then I use the cookie from your user account and try to add a user as well with your authorization, because you're also part of my organization, of my app, and you're able to add a new user too, that is an IDOR. So that means that you had access to things that you weren't supposed to. Maybe you couldn't see it in the UI, but it doesn't matter as long as you can make the request to the API. So I would test for that kind of stuff. It also like cross organizations. If you're testing something, put up 2 organizations, see if you can read information between organizations. That kind of testing doesn't require any code review. It's just business logic. And it's something that if you have the time and patience for it, you can go through all those changes, change all the rights on a user account and see what happens if, okay, so this time, this user is only supposed to read all the reports. This time, the user is allowed to write all the reports. This time, the user is right to delete all the reports. All these different things are different access controls. And if you can bypass those, that's the bug.
Yeah. Do you have any idea about vulnerability disclosure program?
I don't do those. I understand that it's a good recommendation. A lot of people recommend people to start doing VDPs to get their kind of like training wheels on because it's less competition and since they're not paying for it, you can probably just find more bugs there. And I think it's good for the self-esteem to know that you can find bugs to do a couple of VDPs. I didn't do that. I did a report on one VDP. I realized I wasn't getting paid. I'm like, what? I'm not getting paid? But I worked really hard for this. And then I realized, okay, I'm just going to do paid accounts from now on. So I'm only doing high-paying bounty programs because it's a tougher competition, but it puts me on edge. And if I get something there, it pays well. And that's all I want.
Okay, Doug, as you know, social engineering is a non-technical strategy to treating people. So can you give us some information about how to avoid yourself from social engineering attack?
How you should avoid being a part of a social engineering attack?
Yes.
You just ask questions. Make sure that, make sure you have 2FA on everything. Like you should have 2FA on all the websites that you use. That's a good thing. Don't click on all the links in all the emails. See who's the sender. If somebody calls you and says, hi, we're from the from the insurance company, and we would like to have your password. Can you give it to us? Then you say, no. And don't give them your password. It's that simple. Social engineering, it's all about getting people comfortable or uncomfortable. Somebody can just call you and yell at you and say, you fucking stole all my shit. I'm really, really angry. I want stuff back. That puts an emotion in you. So you get worried and you're like, oh, what should I do now? Get a shock, and they will try to implement stuff or get information from you and stuff like that. So just be curious who you talk to. A little bit of security awareness around your stuff. So kind of look at yourself from the side and see, if I wanted to hack this person, what would I do? And then take any kind of fixes that allows you to be a bit more secure.
Have you been in trouble with any hackers?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Is that a good way for a hacker to use the issues for bad purposes or sell the data on internet of any company when they find a bug?
People do that all the time. There's people that do that, but you need to understand the difference between a hacker and a cyber criminal. There's 2 different things. They might look the same. But if you look at a hacker, Casey Ellis always explains it this way, and I like to use his methodology for this. So a hacker is like the locksmith. You lock yours outside of the house, you can't get in, your keys are on the inside, you want to get home. You call a locksmith, they come there, they use some tools, they open the door for you, and they maybe give you a new key for you to get in and say, okay, that will be X amount of money, you are now at your home. A cyber criminal, on the other hand, can use the same tools and the same techniques, but what they do, on the other hand, is rob you of everything that you have and steal your shit, leave the door open, you just go. That's the big difference. A hacker is somebody that wants to help you secure your system, and their only crime is their curiosity. A cyber criminal, on the other hand, is a criminal person stealing and destroying stuff. That's not okay. But if somebody wants to do criminal stuff, you can't really stop them. You can say, that's bad, stop doing that. And if they want to sell things on the dark net or sell it to, I don't know, organizations that like to do bad stuff in the world, I don't know, some kind of, I would be having hard trouble sleeping at night. So I don't do that at all. I never touch that. I like to hack stuff, but I do it for good.
All right. In 2019, HackerOne posted something about top 10 most impactful vulnerability types, and top 1 was cross-site scripting, XSS. What do you think, which type is more dangerous or impactful for website?
What's more impactful than XSS?
Yes.
Well, of course, RCEs, SQLIs, XXEs, they are more impactful, but you can, if let's say SSTI, server-side, template injection, those are also bad, but all these bugs are bad. It just depends on what kind of circumstance. You can get the best RCE in a very hardened sandbox, and it's like, meh, it doesn't matter. It could even be by design that you're allowed to do that. But if you had the possibility to get a stored XXS and get an admin panel and get credentials to access systems that you definitely weren't supposed to get access to, because that XXS calls home to your, I don't know, let's say you're running your own versions of XXS Hunter or something, and you will get the cookies so you can log in on that organization and then just tear it apart using those credentials. That would be a bad thing. But you need to prove that impact.
What is the difference between a hacker and an attacker?
I don't know the difference. I think both are the same. Hackers and attackers, it's just different kind of name. An attacker is somebody that attacks a system. A hacker could also attack a system. But I think the analogy that hackers and cyber criminals are two different things that we need to at least focus on.
What about the difference between private and public program?
A public program is a program that has been around for a while. Usually a bigger, more mature organization that they have tested their attack surface. That doesn't mean that there aren't any bugs there. It just means that they are mature enough to say, we want people, anyone, to look at our stuff. A private program is a little bit a more careful program. Maybe they aren't ready yet to invite everybody. Maybe they just want a few people first because they aren't really, their organization doesn't allow to or able to deal with the amount of reports that come in. Imagine you were sitting in a help desk, right? And you got 1,000 reports coming in. Like, wow, our team can't handle this. Maybe it's better to get a couple of reports every 2 or 3 days or so. So you'll start small and then eventually. But the goal, I think personally, is always to get some of your stuff in what is defined as an open program.
This is my last question. Do you know any Kurdish or Arabic hacker or team? Have you ever been working with team?
I haven't met any Arabic or any Kurdish hacker. I would love to meet them though. For me, age, country, or gender, or anything doesn't matter. If you're a hacker, you're a hacker, and it doesn't matter where in the world you are. So I would say, welcome to Bounties. If we meet, that would be amazing. Have a good one. That's the kind of stuff. Okay. So I would love to meet some Kurdish or Arabic hackers. I don't know any. I don't know the language though, so I think we need to stick to English.
Yeah. So it's my pleasure to be with you. Thank you very much, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure being here. Have a good one. Take care.
Bye.